Excuse me, can I take a minute of your time to talk about the environment? Today I want to talk about environments, and by that I mean the different contexts in which our applications run and how we can change application behavior based on those contexts. To give you an example, I can think of 4 common environments which may require different application behavior: local development, automated testing environments, staging environments, and production. One answer is environment variables. And today we're going to look at working with environment variables in the context of Node.js, but this concept applies across multiple different programming languages and frameworks. So I have a little Node.js application that sets up a couple variables, and based on the values of those variables, we'll log different things to the console. If we run it right now, we'll see a question that says, which environment are you in, forest, jungle, or ocean? So it's asking to get the value of the location given some certain environment. So we can certainly set this with some hard-coded values and say that location equals the jungle, and that will definitely make a change to how the application behaves. But to give an example of how we do this in environment variables, it would make more sense to pull the location from the environment in which the application runs. So in order to do that, the first thing we need to know is how to read from environment variables. In Node.js, we have access to a global object called process. And on this object, we have a property called env, which we can read any environment variables that have been set, like this: process.env. And whatever the variable name is. For our example, let's say that we're looking for an environment variable called location. So if we hit save and we run our application, we can see that location is going to be undefined. Therefore, we get the behavior where we don't have a value for it. Which brings us to the next question of how do we set environment variables? One simple way to set an environment variable is to pass it in as part of the CLI parameters. So we can say location equals jungle, and then call node on our index.js file, and we'll see the response is different. The bonobo is a very cool but endangered animal. If instead of jungle, we say we're in the ocean, then we'll see that the dugong is a very cool but endangered animal. Now this approach is handy, but it's subject to typos, and as our application grows, we may have needs for more environment variables, and it can be hard to remember them or just create a very unruly mess of command line arguments. Fortunately, we can fix that with an npm package called .env. So I can say npm install.env, and that will get the package installed for us. Once we have it installed, we can use the package by creating a .env file in the root of our project and putting our environment variables in there. And next we have to reference the library itself. We can do that at the top of our Node script, like this. And now if we call our script, we'll see that because our environment variable has the location set to jungle, we'll see that the bonobo is a very cool but endangered animal. If we change that to ocean, we can see that the dugong is a very cool but endangered animal. Sometimes we don't have access to reference the .env file prior to running a script. For example, if we needed to initiate a database connection, or if we needed to call a test runner like jest or vtest. In those cases, we can use Node's require flag to reference the .env config file prior to calling our script. And that looks like this: node r .env config, and pass in our script. And we can see that even though we are no longer referencing the file itself or the library, we're still pulling the library in prior to our script running. So we change this back to jungle, we see the bonobo. In this example, we've looked at using environment variables to set up some configuration to modify how our application works. However, they can also be a useful place to store secret information that doesn't belong in your source code. This makes it easy to share code without worrying about leaking private information like API keys or things like that. Consider a situation where you have a large team of developers. You may want to provide production database access to just a few developers and then staging database access to a few more, and everyone else will just have to use a local database like SQLite. If you were to hard code that database access information into your application, everyone would be able to see it and everyone would be able to have access to the production environment. By using environment variables, you can share that information only with the few people that need to have it. This way, only folks with escalated privileges have the keys to the castle. That's all I've got for you today. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope that you are taking care of your environments and your secrets. I'll catch you next time, and please let us know what you thought in the comments.